is going on. Freedom students, I'm so glad to be back with you guys at student groups tonight. Now I gotta say, I miss you guys so much. Like, I miss student nights, I miss coming together at student groups and being together and playing fun games and just doing fun stuff. I miss it so much, but I am so grateful that we have the opportunity to be able to do something like this, to be able to do student groups online, to be able to have something like student night online. Now, next week is our last week of student groups for this semester. How crazy is that? We spent like half the semester online, but even though we don't know what summer is really gonna look like, I can tell you one thing is sure. We are gonna have some summer groups. We don't know exactly what that's gonna look like yet, so stay tuned. We'll be giving you some information about that soon. Anyway, tonight we're gonna be talking about what do you do when things get rough. And I don't mean just like kind of tough, like a little bit difficult. I mean like the most difficult thing you've ever done in your life kind of rough. And I don't think that this specific topic, this specific conversation could have come at a better time. Now, just to give you an idea of how awesome God is, I want to tell you a little bit about how this was planned for tonight. You see, me and Pastor Mark sat down on December 31st to plan out the content for this whole spring semester. So 4 months ago, we sat down and jotted down the idea that for tonight, we would be talking about what do you do when things get rough. We didn't know that the whole world would be on lockdown and the whole world would be on quarantine and that life would be forever changed. We had no idea, but God did. How incredible is that He was so intentional with us to plan this, to plant this seed for us to be ready to talk about what do you do when it gets rough, when you've run into stuff that you've never encountered before. Let's dive in. So this semester, we really have been walking through the New Testament. And the New Testament is really just, it's the second half of the Bible, and it's about Jesus, His story, and the church. And in the New Testament, there are so many different principles and little knowledge nuggets that we can apply to our lives today. So what do you do when things get rough? I want to take you to a part in the New Testament where things started to get a little dicey. See, Jesus had just resurrected, and He went to all His disciples and was like, hey guys, go tell everyone about what I just did. Tell everybody about my life and what I did for them. And then He left. Now, talk about a pretty daunting task. Even if they had Jesus there, right? It would have been daunting, but they didn't. He left. And to make things worse, when they started doing what He asked them to, life got really, really tough. There was one of the followers of Jesus named Stephen that was stoned to death. Others were being beaten in public. Others were being thrown in jail. It was a crazy, difficult time. Now, I want to pick up in Acts 12. Things are really rough right now. King Herod had just had John's brother James killed. And then immediately after that, because of the positive response that he got from the people, he had Peter arrested. Talk about a rough time, right? Like, Peter's just out there doing what Jesus asked him to do, and he gets arrested and thrown in jail. If it were me, I'd been questioning God. I'd have been like, what the heck, man? I'm just out here doing what you asked me to, and what do I get for it? I just get thrown in jail. My friends are being killed. My reputation is being destroyed. What is going on? But I want to show you how Peter responds. You see, like we said before, Peter had just been thrown in jail, and he was being held overnight because he was going to be tried the next morning. Probably going to be sentenced to death. So there Peter was, because of following Jesus' instructions, he was sitting in jail awaiting his execution. Now, Peter could have been freaking out. He could have been stressing. He could have been pacing. He could have been cursing God, telling him, why in the world did you do this to me? All I ever did was listen to you. But that's not what we see. What do we see Peter doing? We see Peter sleeping. Chained up between two prison guards, sleeping on the ground. You see, I think Peter finally learned a lesson that Jesus had been trying to teach him the whole time he was here. In John 16:33, Jesus was talking to his disciples and he said these words. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble. Not might, not sort of, kind of be tough. You will have trouble, but take heart because I have overcome the world. You see, Peter is sitting in jail awaiting his death, and he finally figured out the whole peace thing. And I can only imagine that he sat there and he looked back to a time where Jesus did the exact same thing. You see, there was a moment when all of the disciples were out on a boat and a storm started to rise up. They thought they were going to die. It was that bad of a storm. And where was Jesus when all this was going on? He was down in the bottom of the boat, sleeping. Why? Because he knew the one who commanded the waves and the wind. You see, Peter was in jail in the midst of probably the worst case scenario for following Jesus' orders. And what is his response? He sleeps. He rests. Why? Because he knows the one who's in control of it all. He had so much faith in God's promises. He had so much faith in what Jesus had told him when he was here that he didn't let his circumstances determine his faith. I was listening to this sermon the other day by Pastor Levi Lusko. You should check him out. He's an amazing teacher. And he said this thing when he was talking about joy. He said, your circumstances should not determine your joy because your circumstances didn't give you your joy. I think you can take that phrase and substitute the word joy for faith or peace. Our circumstances didn't give us our faith. They didn't give us our peace. So why should we let our circumstances dictate them? Our faith and our peace should be tied to God's promises. They should be tied to everything that he has done in our lives to prove that he is faithful. Right now, our world is experiencing completely unprecedented circumstances. No one in this lifetime has ever experienced anything like we're going through. But we shouldn't allow that to determine our faith. Right now, what we have to do, Freedom students, what we have to do is we have to lean in to God. We have to lean in to all of the promises, everything that he has already done for us, and trust that he is faithful. And you know what happens when you do that? You can sleep through the storm, just like Jesus did when he was in the boat, because he knew who was in control of the storm.